Hi everyone, welcome to this online lesson for Bell Tone Brass Studio. My name is Sean Bell. Today we're going to talk about 3 common myths about brass playing. Now I notice these with my own students, I notice these sometimes with professional players, and so today hopefully we're going to debunk a few of these things and get you working in the right direction. So myth number 1, more air is the solution to our problems as brass players. Now, air often is the solution to our problems. However, the thought process of more air is the solution can lead us down a troublesome path. This general thought process of more is more when we're playing any brass instrument is generally not helpful for most players. It can get us some of the ways there, but it can also create some real problems. What we really want to think about when we're thinking about how we use our air and what is common across all of the different approaches to air usage and breathing is the word flow. Rather than thinking about more air, less air, all this type of stuff, we want to think about, is my air flowing? And if I have a nice flowing, consistent airstream, I'm probably doing most of the things correctly. Where we tend to run into problems is where that flow is slowed down or stopped, sometimes by tightness in our throat, by our tongue, by not using our diaphragm in the right way. If we don't have this flow, that's where we have some problems working. Now, let's look at this in a couple examples. We want to think about our air being dependent upon the music we're going to play. If I'm coming in on something that is in the middle register and relatively quiet, I'm going to use different air than if I'm coming in way in the upper register and I'm playing something that's relatively aggressive. I'm going to play a couple bars of Rochut for you here. This is going to be just a nice, easygoing type of air, probably kind of our starting point for our air. Emory Remington might have called this a conversational breath, meaning that just an easygoing breath in that is relaxed, and when the air comes out, same thing. Now, if we contrast that with a different style, I'm going to play a little bit from the Lionel Richie tune All Night Long. It has a great like horn section part. Very different type of air in All Night Long. Much more focused, much faster. I would even say a little bit more compressed. Those core muscles are a little bit more engaged. And some people might disagree with me that that's really what we want to think about. However, if we try to put the air from Rochut over on All Night Long, you're not going to be very successful, and vice versa. So we need to think about the air being somewhat dependent on the style of music we're playing. All right, on to myth number 2. Developing strength is the solution to our problems. Now, this word strength for us as brass players, I think is really, really problematic. The things that we do really they're not a strength activity. While they do require strength and some conditioning of the embouchure muscles, it is not akin to going like to lift up something heavy, for example, or to go to lift weights where we are lifting and then we relax. That is not how our embouchure works. It is in constant motion. It is more like being a dancer. And yes, dancers need to really develop their muscles to be able to do the things they do, but it's not so much that they're trying to develop just brute force. Strength and thinking from a strength perspective tends us to think about forcing our lips to vibrate. That leads to tension. Instead, we really want to allow our lips to vibrate or to resonate. This word resonance is kind of the most vibration we can get with the least amount of effort. That word is really important. That is going to lead to a better sound, easier playing across the entire range. So if we play in the upper register where we really might think the strength is required, the less hard we feel like we're working, or the less we think about closing and a strength exercise, the better off we'll be. Now, when I play up to that high E flat, I'm really not thinking about strength. I'm thinking about using the air. The air is flowing. Yeah, there's some firmness in my embouchure, and I've invested some time to train my body to have that good technique through maybe some lip slur exercises, through some scale exercises in the upper register. However, when it's actually time to play, I'm more thinking about, is my air flowing? And am I playing in tune with a good sound? If we listen for those things, we can disengage our brain from this like strength mindset, which often leads to a pinch sound, or sometimes an overblown sound, especially for younger players. All right, our last myth, our third myth for today is, and this really affects us across all instruments, but I just tend to notice this a lot with brass players. And I think this is because oftentimes with brass instruments, there is a lot of fundamental technique that you need to develop in order to play them, even at a basic level. Even if you don't play piano at all, you can go up to a piano and you can hit a middle C and the note is going to come out. Clearly, that does not work on a brass instrument. So because we have to develop this fundamental technique of developing our embouchure muscles, I think brass players tend to over-focus on technique. And what we do is we practice technique before we practice music. We think that these are two separate things. I guarantee you, nobody comes to hear you play high or fast or loud unless it is in service of the music. Nothing turns off the listener more than hearing empty technique. Most listeners, even if they not listen to a lot of brass players, they can see through sort of empty displays of technique, and the technique has really got to be there to serve the music. So when we're choosing how to practice, what to practice, we want to make sure that we are putting that technique in service of the music. Now, that doesn't mean we don't practice things that are high, fast, or loud. Clearly, we have to play those things as well, but we want to think, when I practice that technique, how do I connect that to some music and make sure that I'm investing my, limited practice resources in a way that serves music and doesn't just serve developing technique. All right, so those are three myths that I think are, common among all brass players, myself included. These things are easy to talk about, maybe a little more difficult to implement. So hopefully that helps you, get you thinking about how to maybe improve some of these things in your own playing.